Uh, Let me go live here so we can start recording. Looks like a lot of people starting to join in here at the live. Here we go. All right, everyone, as you're joining in, real quick, some quick ground rules or notes or whatever you want to call it. This is your first webinar with us. We will keep everyone muted for the duration of the webinar, and we will be utilizing the chat functionality within Zoom. I'm going to send everyone a nice hello from sunny Rocky Hill, as you can see behind me. All right, just put something in the chat for you so you guys can kind of track that down and figure out where it is. That's how we will be communicating. That's how you guys will be answering your questions. And that's how we'll be communicating with you as well. So real quick to get off, it is 3 o'clock, 3:01. So we're going to start off. As you guys, if you've been in one of these before, my name is Corey. I am the manager of employee and community development here at Nutmeg State Financial, which means I do a lot of stuff with a lot of things, with a lot of people. So one of those people is Shane Dugan, who is our AVP of lending, who will be really going through. He's the mastermind behind most of the information you'll see today, and mastermind behind most of the PPP program that we have here at Nutmeg. Without him, I wouldn't be hosting this webinar. So as always, just some last minute things. If you guys need to sign off because you need to clean up some snow or you need to rewatch any of these slides, we will have this available on all of our social media platforms later today on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So, of course, it's going to be on YouTube as well. So if you need to rewatch it or go back to a slide or whatever, we will have this available later tonight. And if you've not viewed any of the other webinars we've done over the last year, they're all available on our YouTube page as well. So you will see that on our website and on social media shortly after we're done here today. So Shane, I will kick it off to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Corey. Great introduction as always. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Do me a favor. And when you hopefully see the presentation, just give me a quick thumbs up. And the presentation in the presentation format that you want to see, not just the regular version. So hopefully you can see the main screen. Good. All right, everybody. Perfect. All right. So most of today, everybody, we're going to focus on probably what is the hottest topic right now, which is the folks who have the 50,000 and under loan and the 3508S. So we've been letting you guys know that we were working on coding the form within our forgiveness portal over the last couple months, and we've gotten that up and squared away. So we'll have some updates there. We'll focus on what that application process looks like, and again, what you have to provide from a documentation standpoint. A lot of this, to be honest, guys, is nothing new for you. It's going to be similar to what you saw last time. You know, the process in regards to applying on our portal, that didn't change at all. It's just a different form and what you have to provide in that case for you guys. So we'll get started. As Corey.
Shane, sorry, you're muted 1 second.
There we go. I think I'm unmuted again, right?
There you go. Yep.
Good. All right. As Corey mentioned, yeah, any questions along the way, feel free to chat them in. You happen to have them after the fact, you'll have that business lending email again to shoot them out to. So happy to help answer any of those along the way, though. Okay, so we'll get started. I just got to remember how to switch screens. All right. Important updates. Although let me get this other screen. Corey, can you see the Zoom people on my screen, or does it not overlay that? Okay.
No, yeah. Keep going as you're going. You're good.
Perfect. All right. So those folks, loans that have less than $50,000 on them, we are staggering the forgiveness links for those folks. If you had a loan likely originating in early April to mid-April at this point, you've probably gotten your link. We're getting to the point where I think we're getting into the end of April, early May at this point, getting those out there. But basically, we're choosing to stagger them and send them out in waves to just make sure that we can manage the applications that come back to us, right? So we have a finite amount of time to process these and get these to the SBA with a decision. So we need to make sure that we obviously don't overload ourselves, specifically during the holidays when we have some people with time off, that type of stuff. So please be patient. If you haven't gotten it yet, we are working on getting through that list and getting those registration links out to you. Now, if you are one of those people who has some sort of urgent need, and I say urgent as in there's a requirement, there's something really that forces you to do it, business sale, something along those lines, we'd be happy to get that link out for you. If you just are trying to get it in as quick as possible, please just sit tight. We are getting through them, and you should all have them, I'd say, in the next coming weeks. if you are ready to apply in that 50,000 and under group. Anybody over that 50,000, you should have a link out to you. If not, you can certainly reach out to us at the business lending email, and you're welcome to apply at any point. We do still, if you have a loan that's under $150,000, we still do suggest that you guys hold off applying. We do still believe that there's going to be blanket forgiveness. There's a lot of talk right now, obviously, with some of the changes going on in the government about the next stimulus package and getting something together sooner rather than later. Who knows what that means? Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball and I can't tell you that, but I am hearing a lot of things being addressed with the next round of stimulus, one of which is the blanket forgiveness part for loans under $150,000. The other part being a round 2 for PPP funds, or well, I guess this would be round 3, technically, not round 2. And then last but not least, there's the EIDL loan that is tripping up some forgiveness for some people, and I'll cover that in a moment as well. So moral of that story is there is relief coming. From what I understand, Rosa DeLauro spent a significant amount of time talking about that and what the Appropriations Committee is apparently working on, trying to get out there as a part of the next stimulus package, basically 2 or 3 days ago on an SBA call. So it does sound like a lot of these things are being worked on and are moving forward. It's just a matter of kind of when they're going to finalize. Okay. If you do want to proceed forward, though, remember, because there's no blanket forgiveness as of today, you're going to have to provide the payroll and non-payroll verification information, right? So your payroll documents, any rent information, mortgage, all of that stuff, you do need to provide that if you apply today. Okay. The 3508 form, it might not require you to put all of those calculations in there. And again, we'll get into this, but that does not mean that you don't need to go through that calculation. And it does not mean that you don't need to provide these documents. If you submit the application without them, unfortunately, we won't process the application until we get the supporting documentation as well. Okay. I'll go over what that means in a second. Again, backwards. If you are in that group and haven't gotten it, and again, there's an urgent need requiring you to apply, please just reach out to that email down below, and we'll have it at the end of the slide, and we'll get that link out to you guys sooner rather than later. Okay. All right. EIDL loans. Those folks that had accepted an EIDL advance, and again, the EIDL advance loan is that loan that they were giving up to $10,000. They later changed it to $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And essentially it was at the time being billed as an advance of the other SBA loan. But what they ended up rolling out was that it was basically an advance of both your PPP or your other economic injury and disaster loan. So unfortunately, as of today, if you did take one of those out, whatever you received for that EIDL advance or the EIDL grant will be removed from your PPP forgiveness. And unfortunately, if you've applied and did not put that it was on there, and then you go through that forgiveness process and the SBA finds that you had one, they're just going to remove that from your payoff, and there's nothing we can do about it at that point. So I would encourage you, if you have an EIDL loan, EIDL advance or grant, right? That's that 10,000 up, not the much larger one. You can get up to a couple $1 million. This is up to that $10,000. If you have that, do not apply for forgiveness. The reason I say that is this is a part of the next stimulus package from what I understand. Rosa DeLauro spent a significant amount of time talking about the fact that apparently there was no intention to have this happen as a part of the program. So they are trying to rectify that through legislation, but unfortunately it requires legislation to do that. So again, if you have an EIDL loan, you apply now and it happens to reduce your forgiveness and you've already gotten your loan forgiven, and nobody's really at this stage. My point being, if you have one, do not apply yet or it will be reduced. Okay, just sit tight, hold off, and I believe that should get taken out of any sort of forgiveness equation for you going forward. Okay. Anybody that has a PPP loan, remember, you do not have to make any sort of payment. There's no payment due on any of these loans for at least 10 months past when your covered period ends. And again, that covered period is the period you've opted to use that funds, either that 8-week period or 24-week period. If you received a PPP loan in April and you were on an 8-week period, your 10 months is basically April of 2021, right? So you've got plenty of time still to get your application in. And that's just getting the application in. That's not a decision or anything like that. You literally just have to get the application in by that point. If you're on a 24-week schedule and your loan funded in August, I think that brings you closer to the August timeframe, if my memory serves me right from the calendar math I was doing the other day. Okay. So again, there's no rush to do this outside of, I think, most people just feeling like there's pressure to get these off of their balance sheets. That I totally understand. But to be honest, even if you apply today, I would wholly expect these loans to be around for at least late Q1, some point Q2 2021. These are going to follow us, and unfortunately, into 2021 for some time. Okay. All right. So again, the 3508, this is similar to what we went over last time. Who can use it? Basically, if you have a loan that is under $50,000, for the most part, you can use this 3508 form, and it's going to be a lot easier for you, and it's going to require you to put a lot less information on it. And again, you still have to go through the calculations. You still have to ensure that you've obtained full forgiveness. You just don't have to document it on the form, but you're going to have to document it within our portal. So again, you want to make sure that you go through that process and ensure that you've gone through and qualify for full forgiveness. The only people who have a loan under $50,000 who essentially can't use this would be if you have affiliate organizations, so subsidiaries, those types of things. And your loans totaled between all of those companies over $2 million, and then you can't use it at that point. Okay. Anybody else would use the 3508EZ or 3508 form, which we covered in previous webinars. So if you happen to be one of those groups who has a loan over $50,000, we do post those on YouTube, I believe Facebook and LinkedIn as well, so you can access those older videos at any time. Okay. Really quick, this is what the 3508S form looks like. If you remember the 3508EZ and then the 3508 regular form, those were like 9 pages or something like that. So much nicer, much smaller, right? Again, there's nothing in the way of calculations on here. You have to do that all separately. It's more just attesting to the fact that you did that and that you are stating that you qualified for full forgiveness. If you actually go through what you're signing your initials on in the middle of the first page, that's essentially kind of what you're saying. All right. But most of this information is going to be just information that you then plug into the forgiveness portal. And page 2 is, for the most part, just demographic information, which is optional for you guys to fill out. Okay. Too many links. All right. What do you need before you apply? Again, you're going to need the registration link for the forgiveness portal. Again, that's going to come directly from our partners at MBFS. You're going to want to make sure that you fill out and go through the form. Again, you're going to have to submit the 3508 signed form, whether or not it's digitally signed or hand signed, and all of the supplemental documentation to the portal at the end of that process. So you're going to want to make sure you go through all of that and you have it readily available. You're going to have to verify some basic ownership information that should be relatively straightforward, I believe, for you guys, since most of the owners or most of these are relatively small businesses, and it's probably you as the owner going through this process. And then again, the payroll and non-payroll verification. You still need to provide this documentation showing that you use the funds appropriately. As of today, that is a requirement still. Okay. Now, what do you need from a payroll standpoint? Okay. Most of you guys, to be honest, on this call are probably going to have already given us a good amount of the payroll documentation that you need to provide if the only thing you got money for was owner compensation for PPP. If that's the case, you probably used your 2019 Schedule C or your K-1s to help support the owner's compensation that you received in 2019. The SBA is essentially just taking that 2019 Schedule C or K-1 and carrying it forward and allowing you to use that for your forgiveness for this. Now, if you do have employees and you have to provide documentation to support that, that would be your bank statements, your payroll reports, your 941s, unemployment, taxes, canceled checks, those types of things. A majority of you guys, again, are probably more in the Schedule C or K-1 range, but it could be a combination of any of this, okay? And obviously, the Schedule C and K-1s, as we talked about previously, You did not have to give the filed version. We don't necessarily need the filed version of it either, but it does have to be the version that you will file. And I mean, you can't go and change the income on that 29 tax return after the fact and file it and assume that the SBA won't pick that up at some point and possibly, would go after you for those PPP funds, right? The point is that you are using the same documentation, or you filed that same documentation after you received PPP funds that you used to get the proceeds in the first place, okay? Non-payroll information. This is your use of the funds for mortgages. Again, you could use it to help support mortgage interest, rent or lease payments. You can cover your whole rent or lease payment. In that case, utilities, your phone bills, electric, those types of things, as long as they were in existence prior to February 15th, 2020, you were able to use the funds as a part of those payments that you need to make for your business. Remember, though, you had a threshold of 60 and 40, right? So you had to use 60% of the funds at minimum for payroll. Obviously, you could use up to 100% for payroll. And then you could use the remaining 40% of those funds for these type of non-payroll expenses. I think, again, most of you who use the 2019 Schedule C or 2019 K1, probably this is pretty irrelevant because you're just carrying forward that Schedule C or K1 information. Okay, but if not, these are what you would provide to help support these types of expenses. Okay. One thing to note too, this was a great question, and I can't remember who asked it, but it was a good one. When you get forgiveness for your PPP funds, somebody asked whether or not that would be taxable income as normal debt forgiveness is. No, the SBA and really the IRS is not considering the forgiveness taxable income like it would be normal for debt forgiveness. However, these expenses that I'm talking about here, these non-payroll expenses, these payroll expenses, essentially they're not going to allow you to deduct them as expenses from your 2020 tax returns. So while you're not, it's not being treated as income, there is going to be an effect from a tax standpoint to some degree. Again, you're going to want to talk to your CPA or accountant about that, but be fully prepared that they are not going to allow you to deduct whatever you use the PPP funds or any other economic stimulus money, from what I understand, as business expenses in 2020. They believe that would be considered double dipping. Okay. Before we get into the portal, Corey, any questions? Anything anybody want to?
Yeah, we had some people roll in a couple minutes ago, a little late. That's okay. We haven't covered too much yet. But just as a reminder, if you guys have any questions, please utilize the chat functionality right there. I just put a chat to everyone, so that's where we'll be accepting questions and answering questions. So if you do have something, please put it in the chat, and we will get to it either during these little breaks or near the end. I also put the business lending at nutmegstatefcu.org in the chat as well. So if anyone needs to contact the business lending department in regards to the PPP program, I'll just put it in there again for everyone to have. So again, chat functionality for questions. Shane, we can keep going, it looks like.
Perfect. All right, guys, so we're going to segue to the portal. And again, this is really not much different from what I went over with the folks that have the larger over $150,000 loans when the portal opened up for them. Realistically, it's just what information you're putting in and then what you're uploading in the end. That's different. Okay. So again, you're going to get the registration link to the portal from our partner, MBFS. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it will come from a email that says at mbfs.org. So just make sure that you guys are on the lookout for that. When you get it, you're going to sign in. I believe it's the same username and password that you created when you set the link up when you applied. If you did not set up a username and password because you did not use the portal initially, they are giving you that information as a part of the registration as they send that out to you guys. Okay, so you have access to that at that point. But you're basically going to go to that dashboard. It's that first arrow down in the bottom left-hand corner. Okay. And then you're going to navigate to apply for a new loan. I know that sounds a little weird because you're not necessarily applying for a new loan, but that's where the application house. Okay. That's where this upper right-hand little arrow is over there. Again, guys, you're going to be able to download this PowerPoint later on or access it later on if you want to watch it. All right, so you're going to go navigate down specifically to Paycheck Protection Forgiveness, click on that tab and hit apply. You should notice the business populate at that point. If you are one of the few individuals who had multiple businesses, please let us know if you're running into an issue trying to log in. There are a couple instances where people had multiple logins and we have to actually merge these businesses together. We think we've gotten the ones that would have run into that at this point. But if you happen to have more than one business and are running into any issue where you can't get all of them all in one area, please let us know and we'll get that situated for you. Okay. But you're going to click on the business that you're looking to apply for forgiveness for. All right. And that's going to start the process for that. Okay. So you're just going to review the loan information that should auto-populate within the portal here. You're going to, again, I mentioned that you're going to need some very basic ownership information. For the most part, that should be complete in here, given that we had to upload it when we first applied. But if not, just fill out any supplemental information that it's asking for within there and then click next. Pretty straightforward. Okay. Next is you're going to have to let us know what you're using for your covered period. Did you use the 8-week covered period, 24-week covered period, and then when did your payroll period start? Okay, that's an important part as a part of that calculation. So again, you're going to have gone through this calculation, even though it doesn't require it on paper. You're going to have gone through this calculation beforehand to ensure that you qualified. Okay, and obviously you have to elect one of these periods to do that. Once you do that, just click next. All right, and it's going to ask you some very generic questions, and this is just trying to help determine whether or not you qualify for the 3508 EZ or 3508S. For most of you folks, you're just going to answer the questions in regards to your loan amount to determine that you qualify for that 3508S, and it will allow you to proceed with that going forward. Okay. Review eligible payroll costs. Remember, all of those eligible payroll costs are those employee cash compensation, health insurance, retirement plans, state, local compensation, ownership compensation. All of that information you're going to need to plug in here. Again, this is exactly why you have to go through that calculation prior to doing this, because you still need to enter this data within the portal. Okay, and then the number of owners as well. Again, should be relatively straightforward. If you use your 2019 Schedule C or K1, for the most part, you're really only going to have this owner's compensation, I believe, for you guys. Head count. All right. So again, you're using the 3508 for the most part because you are that group under 50,000 and you haven't let anybody go. You haven't reduced head count, anything along those lines. Okay. So this should be pretty straightforward. Your head count details should just be the same on each period. Okay. So you're just going to put that information that you put on the form within these two boxes here. Now, again, if you did have head count changes that impacted your forgiveness, you should not be using the 3508S form. You need to go to the 3508 form, which goes through that calculation about how your forgiveness is reduced based off of you either reducing people's wages or reducing your head counts. Again, at that point, if you did that, you would not qualify for the EZ form or the 3508S form. You just have to use the 3508 form. Still time as well. If you did not bring your employees back and you're just finding that out, you technically have until 12/31 of this year, so 2 weeks left, to get back to that level and pay them, and you would qualify at that point, as long as it's still within your covered period, people, okay? Oop, went too far. All right, so most of you, again, if you're using your K1s, your Schedule Cs, you probably don't have much in non-payroll costs, but if you did, your mortgage interest, your rent, utilities, that type of information, you're just going to plug that those figures in here and hit next. It's going to carry it forward to, oops, oh, nope, not the summary yet. Sorry, the next page, which confirms that you don't have a PPP loan over $2 million. Again, I covered this last time. Make sure you do not check this box. It is an auto audit box, if I could best describe it. If you click this box, even if your loan's not under over $2 million, the SBA is looking at this box as a trigger to hold up your file and pursue a manual review of it. So do not check that box accidentally or expect your loan to get looked at by the SBA, I guess, from what I'm hearing. Okay. And then any EIDL advanced funds. Again, I'm hoping that I got the message across for you guys for this. If you received an EIDL loan, I highly encourage you not to apply right now. You don't want to wait though, and you want to pay it back for some reason, that's where you would put this information for now, okay? Just gonna give you a quick summary after that. All right, so just confirm everything looks okay over there, and it will give you the overall forgiveness amount, right? So this is a check for you to make sure that that looks all good, okay? And one thing I forgot to mention, guys, as well, as you go through, you're gonna notice, and I didn't mention it because it blocked out for me over here by everybody's faces, but on the right side of each page, you're gonna have some helpful information, right? So if you're getting into the period or part where you're talking about covered periods, it's going to have helpful information about what those covered periods are and how they're applicable to forgiveness, okay? So all of these little tiles on the right-hand side all have helpful, useful information for you guys and are pertinent to whatever's on that page, okay? Next page is certifications. Basically, you're certifying that what you've provided, either from a documentation standpoint or through the records that you submitted here, right, is true, and that you use the funds for appropriate use. If you took PPP funds and you went and bought a car with it or something along those lines, right, this is where certifications can come back and haunt you later. You had very specific reasons as to why you were supposed to use the PPP funds. This is basically you certifying that you use those funds in the appropriate manner and in compliance with the program, okay? And next would be the just the consent of their overall information in your electronic signature. Again, you guys have all dealt with that before. Usually put your initials, your name in, pretty straightforward. And then the optional demographic information, okay? Feel free to fill that out at your leisure if you'd like. Okay, next, and you are getting to the end of the process, almost the end of the process, okay? So just review everything at that point and hit submit your application. You're gonna get that fun little turny wheel. Once it submits, you're going to get to this fun page again, all right? You're going to recognize this as your overall landing page. Please click Go to Dashboard. Again, that's that first link you actually clicked when you first got on here, because that's going to bring you to your document portal. And this is where you're going to submit all the documentation, okay? You're going to notice this is that same dashboard again that you were when you hit the Apply for Forgiveness up here, okay? But instead, this time, you're just going to drag and drop the 3508S that you've signed and any supporting documentation into this box. I'm going to warn you guys, like the previous time, one of the flaws in the system, unfortunately, is that once you upload this here and you submit, if you come back in later on, it's going to look like the documents aren't in there. I promise you, as long as you dragged and dropped it and it looked like it accepted it, it should be where it needs to be and available for review, okay? But you won't be able to see that if you come back in here. It'll just look like a generic landing page again at that point, okay? Again, you're just gonna upload all of the documents right to this one central location. Make sure it's not password protected or anything along those lines, folks, right? I mean, obviously we can't get into it if that's the case, and we'll have to reach out to you. All right, so you submit your loan, you've submitted all of the documentation. What do you expect next? So we've got 60 days to essentially review that decision and let you know what that means, right? So that could be you've been granted full forgiveness, right? And we're submitting this to the SBA, move onward and forward, or that could be for one reason or another, there's something in here. Maybe it's an EIDL loan that we found that you didn't put on the application, or you changed your head count and somehow that affected it and you didn't realize it. We would notify you of that. And at this point, we have the option to stop the forgiveness process and to allow you to go back to the table and either supply additional documentation to support using the funds appropriately and getting full forgiveness. Or you can certainly say at that point, okay, this is what it is, and the remaining amount of funds, I know I'm going to have to pay back at that point. And then at that point, we would pursue the partial forgiveness, and then we would work with you to figure out some way to term out the remaining balance for you, okay? And again, remember, if you've gotten to this point, we find out that you had an EIDL loan. Well, somebody's marking the screen. How are they doing that? That's impressive. Wasn't me. Interesting. Anyhow, if we find that out, unfortunately, guys, you know, and you've gotten your your payoff from the SBA, there is, again, no turning back at that point. You would then responsible for that remaining EIDL forgiveness part that was not forgiven. Okay. Now, what happens after Nutmeg makes that decision, and either you agree with it or we come to terms with what to do with the balance if there is a balance. At that point, the SBA essentially has 90 days on their end to review what we submit to them before they remit the payoffs in whatever capacity that means to us. Okay. I am hearing that they are utilizing just about all of that 90-day window. To give you guys an example, we've submitted a couple loans for forgiveness, and from what we can tell, the SBA has not touched them. Unfortunately, it looks like they're focusing on a lot of the fraud that is being found on the first wave of forgiveness applications, much of which is unfortunately larger loans that are on the multiple hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars range. So they are in the midst of reviewing a lot of those, and I believe that is where a lot of this bottleneck is unfortunately taking place. So again, there's not, in my opinion, a lot of reason to rush because the SBA is probably not going to process a lot of these until that blanket forgiveness is approved, and they don't have to do much on their end with them. So again, you can submit this now. Happy to go through that process with you. But I would highly anticipate these being around for 4 to 5 months, even at that point, while we wait for the SBA to make decisions. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna, Shane, have to pause for a sec. I think the lines actually were you because I can't figure out how to get rid of them.
I don't know who. Yeah, I saw somebody draw on there. It's funny.
It might be through PowerPoint. Before it looks like you're about to wrap up. Anyways, I had a couple questions in chat. As well.
Go ahead.
I'll put it in link. I'll put one of them in link to you. Do you have your link up? Skype. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what that red.
Oh, you could see that.
Red
though,
is.
huh?
Yeah. There we go. It's gone now. Anyways, question from Kevin: is there an expectation on how long the forgiveness is generally taking to process once the application is completed and submitted?
Yeah, I'd say 4 to 5, 6 months, to be honest. Unfortunately, the SBA is exercising their 90-day window in totality from what I'm seeing. So definitely anticipate having these on your books for a little while, unfortunately. I know that's not what you want to hear, guys. Definitely not what I want to hear as a lender either. But just the reality of the moment.
Next question I have is from Gerald. And Gerald, we might need a little bit of clarification with your question. Double question.
I know, I got it, I think. I got it. What's going to happen on the next PPP loan? So I'm assuming you're referring to the next stimulus package with proceeds and available funds for round, I keep saying 2, but 3. Unfortunately, I think only time will tell there. What I understand is that they are trying to hone in on businesses that did not qualify for relief in the first place, or those businesses that are hardest hit at this point by the continued impacts of COVID, right? So, now that, and I'm speculating here, so don't quote me on this, guys, but now that restaurants are being impacted again, right, by a lot of people being shut off, from being able to go in, I understand that they're trying to loop that in. If you were a 50C6, so your travel, leisure, your chambers, your social gathering clubs, those types of places, right, that didn't qualify in the first round. From what I understand, they're trying to loop those groups of businesses into it. I do not anticipate that it would be open to everybody like the first round was. I think that they're going to be a little bit more limiting with that. But I think time will tell, guys. And I think, just stay connected to what's going on with that next stimulus package, because that's what's going to have what that is. Good question.
Question from, I put it in link for you. A question from Ocean Phillips. If payroll was abused recently, we have until the end of 2020 to provide an additional payment to be aligned with the PPP loan requirements.
You have until 12/31/2020 to bring people back to their prior income or staffing levels to not trigger the forgiveness reduction. So yes, you've got about 2 weeks left. You can absolutely do it in masses from what I understand, right? So if you're going to say you cut their amount down by $20,000 during this period, right? If you come to the table, I guess, with that equivalent to bring it back up to that $20,000, then that should solve that problem for you. But again, you have to do it before the end of the year. And make sure you're in your covered period. Sorry. If you're not in your covered period, or if you said that you were in an 8-week covered period, you then need to probably change to a 24-week covered period as well to make sure that you're within that covered period still.
Which I think that kind of relates to Ocean's second question. Is there blanket forgiveness, and will there be a need to not reduce payroll?
So the best thing I could say is that blanket forgiveness is not going to necessarily absolve you from using the PPP funds the way that the program was outlined. So if the program outlined that you needed to use the funds in a 60-40 capacity, that you needed to not reduce people's wages by more than 25% or your headcount, you need to make sure you do that even with blanket forgiveness, because you can get audited later, and if they find out otherwise, could take that back. Will that happen? Probably highly unlikely for small loans like this, right? The SBA has limited resources. That is probably not the case, but the point I'm trying to drive home here is the program was made for a certain thing, for you to use the funds for a certain thing. They're absolutely holding people to that, and if they find out you are not, they will potentially have a reason to go after you. Whether they have the resources, that is a different story. You are hearing, and I'm hearing tons of, this is probably an example that's outside of the box or outside of the norm here, but people who took the money and sent it overseas, like that type of stuff, they are getting in trouble, and the SBA is requiring them to pay it back because that was not what the funds were for. It was meant for direct investment into the U.S. economy, your employees, your business, and you did not use the funds appropriately that way, and they have and will find out in some cases and hold you to that. So just be careful, follow the program.
Another follow-up from Ocean I put in Skype for you. So the question being is that business owners can reduce payroll by 25%, question mark?
You can. You have the ability to reduce wages by up to 25% and not have your forgiveness reduced. If you want any more specifics in that one, Ocean, I'd probably just direct you to the webinar that we did in August. That's going to have a lot of the differences and the changes between the 25% and 40% and still keeping those 25% payroll and then your full-time headcount. There's a lot of explanation in that August webinar specifically around there.
And just as a reminder, I know some of you joined a little late, the webinars that Shane is referring to, and this one as well, will all be on our YouTube page, as well as shared on, so today's webinar will be shared on social media, so you can actually gain access to our YouTube page right from there, or just look us up on YouTube and you will find all the webinars all scattered in there in our page as well. So if you ever need to reference back to, we've done one pretty much every month since, probably April, so there should be about 5 or 6 of them in there, all with different good information with great questions. So yeah, please go back and review this one as well. The slides that Shane had in today's presentation will also be available on our website as well if you need them. Today was a lot of do this, click here, do that. So I'm feeling today's PowerPoint will be a little bit more beneficial for some of you to have hands-on because it has some good screenshots and instructions. So please, again, reference our social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Almost forgot the fourth one. But they're all in there as well. So as we're wrapping up here, I know today was a shorter one than what we're used to doing. If there are any other questions, please put them in the chat. And while you guys think of some final questions, we will be looking to do, again, another one of these within the next month or so. As there's updates related to the PPP program, that's when we will announce these updates. So just keep an eye out on our social media or through our emails that we send out, and we'll have information on that as well. While we finish up here, I will put in the chat one more time the email to reach out.
While
Business
Corey, you're
lending.
doing that, I just wanted to thank you guys all for your patience. I know this has been a challenging year in a number of ways for all of you folks. I know that the process with the SBA has not been the most straightforward. Keep in mind, right, this is the government in action, and generally they're not always very quick at anything. So some of what they did was pretty amazing. Now, it has definitely created some hiccups, some headache and heartache probably along the way. I encourage you, just be patient. I think that there's a lot of minds around these things trying to solve those exact pain points for you guys if you're running into them. And if you're one of those businesses that, is still hurting, frankly, I think that there is some future relief along the way and coming for you guys there. I know that there's definitely a need for it. So.
Well, I'm looking at the chat and I don't see any questions. So we'll do a little wrap up here. So again, thank you guys for calling in, listening in, logging in, what have you. Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union, search it on Google. You'll find all of our different social medias as well. This video will be released later tonight, probably within the next few hours. So keep an eye out for that. More importantly, everyone have a safe and happy holiday. No matter what holiday you're celebrating, have a safe and happy one. Also try to stay warm. I know me here in scenic Rocky Hill, as you can tell, I'm having a good time out here. I'm in Rocky Hill. There's like a foot of snow outside. I try to make it a little warmer for everyone today here on the webinar. So Shane, thank you again. Without you, we wouldn't have these webinars. We wouldn't even have the PPP program at this point. So thank you guys for calling in, logging in again, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good holiday, everyone.